We made it. Oh,
Hello, everybody. Hello and hello. Well, good morning. Welcome back to the InterDrone Podcast, your 30,000-foot view of the commercial drone industry. Sorry if you've been waiting a couple minutes. Just had to get our guest on the line. My name is CJ Smith. It is Friday, November 20th, joined today with Mike Peel, Chairman of InterDrone, and our special guest today. Super excited to have him on. He's a perennial InterDrone speaker. He's on the InterDrone Advisory Board. Richard Lopez of Hensel Phelps. Richard, thanks so much for tuning in today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I am so glad to be here. And yeah, I apologize for the delay, but all of you know in this COVID world with technology, oh my goodness. But yeah, I'm glad to be here and look forward to our next hour here.
Awesome.
well, down 45 minutes.
Yeah, we'll see if we can stretch it. We are coming to you guys live again. This is hopefully the new normal for the InterDrone Podcast. We love this format. You guys are able to ask us questions live. We'll get those answered for you. If you're tuning in on Twitch, there's a box down below. You can ask those questions. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, drop your question in the comments and those will be routed to us. You can, if you're watching this right now, you can see the screen on the right-hand side. We'll get those questions answered for you in real time. So again, joined today with Richard Lopez of Hensel Phelps, big supporter of the InterDrone show. We're really excited to have him on today. Just a real thought leader in drones and the construction industries. Richard, can you talk a little bit about maybe your experience in drones, kind of starting a drone program on construction sites and what that whole journey has been like for you?
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you. It's definitely been a journey, and it's been a relatively short journey if you really think about it. You know, we started in 2011, and in technology language and the technology world, that's not a long time, to be honest with you. We started off, it was a drone we purchased from, I don't know if you all remember, but Sharper Image was a company where they were located in malls and they had a drone there. And as I told our team, like, hey, let's go fly a drone. Let's see what we could do with it. That's what started the journey, to be quite honest with you. And then from there, we really started looking at the process to figure out how we could utilize those types of devices on our job sites. First drone we flew, disaster, right? We flew windy environment in the middle of the desert, and it just didn't work well. So we put that on pause until we could actually understand what we were doing before we actually took this to a really active job site. So that's kind of how we started, but the venture has been just, it's been a roller coaster ride, to be honest with you, with new software companies, new technology, but it's been a fun journey, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, great. And we're obviously going to dive into all the success stories you've had. Would you mind filling us in just a little bit? What year was that first deployment, and what were you trying to use that drone for that it didn't maybe work as well as you would have hoped?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, so the goal was back in 2011. It was
2011. Wow.
We had a superintendent who actually said, I want a device that follows me around and just documents my punch list activities. And I told him, yeah, we could do it. It's open source code. We could program a drone to follow you at the QR code. So we were always forward thinking, had no idea what we were doing, nor if we could do it. It was just, yes, we can do it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the attitude. We're going to make it happen no matter what. Well, that didn't work out that well. But think about it. Our idea that we had back then, right? Like we wanted to follow us. Companies have that now, right? It's built into their systems to kind of follow you and do the thing. So that's kind of how we started. But the real big thing that really pushed the envelope and took us to the next level is, we had a procurement effort where we needed to document a site. And you kind of look at it like, the movie industry has been doing CG for a long time. So what we did is we kind of went out and flew the site, and we just kind of let the drone hover and just kind of pause there, looking into the job site, essentially blank job site before we even got it. Mm-hmm. Then from there, we started our CG and just kind of built the building on top of it, sequenced how we were going to build it, put the cranes in there, put our fencing, how we were going to close off and secure the site. And that right there was the first time we used a drone, and we used kind of our CG department to really push the envelope. And from there, it was like every superintendent wanted to use it on their job site. We had some resistance early on And some of the resistance was actually, we needed to kind of set the precedence of kind of the standard of we need to be really careful, safety first, right? That was the key thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely seems like a common theme in some of the initial deployments or the initial drone programs is safety first, transparency. Let's build something sustainable and something that that we can prove is safe also. So, well, thanks again for being here, Richard. And we're gonna the second half of this podcast, we always do a deep interview with our guest. The first half, we like to talk about a couple articles from the past week, kind of a little bit of a news roundup. So with Richard today, the first article we want to touch on is about the construction drone industry. New report. This is an article from dronedj.com. But according to Allied Market Research, the construction drone industry will be worth almost $12 billion by 2027. For some perspective, last year, the drone construction industry brought in $4.8 billion. So that's over increasing the industry at least by a 2x. And this is calculated with a 15% compound annual growth rate. So it definitely seems kind of like some of the points you were making, Richard, that a lot of other groups are looking at this type of technology for work on construction sites. Maybe at a high level for people that aren't in the construction industry, what are some of the most common use cases? I mean, we're looking at almost $12 billion industry in the next, 7 years. But, where does this money come from? Who is it being spent on with regards to drones and UAS being used on construction sites?
Yeah, great question. So here's the biggest thing here, construction, right? When you hear the term construction, that's a broad paintbrush.
Yeah.
Several types of construction, right? There's the vertical, horizontal, just infrastructure. So that's a key thing there. So when really trying to figure out what drone is going to be utilized for those market sectors, it's really important. So the example I'm going to use is how we use it, right? We're a vertical construction company. So where the value for us is to take a drone out and document the site. So what it is essentially, it's a communication tool. It's a tool that is utilized in our superintendent meetings, our owner meetings, and also for owner finance, right? The owner will then go to their investors, their bank lender, and show them progress photos or videos, right? So that's what's really important. That's low-hanging fruit, being able to take those photos from different angles, different progress shots, and just show those to the job site. Also, coordination communication tool. In the vertical market and in our type of construction, it's a great tool to actually show our trade partners, hey, we want you to mobilize in this site, part of the site. There's no access in this other site. What they're doing is they're pointing and looking at the photographs from the job site. So low-hanging fruit right there, but it's been tremendously valuable. Then we start to get into horizontal, right? And this is what I think, this is what you just cited, the numbers that are really increasing. I am hoping in those numbers that we actually start to see a lot more surveyors really, taking this technology and take it to the next level, because this technology truly benefits them. Because what you're able to do with this technology is you're able to go document a job site to understand what cut fill is, understand what those boundaries are, in a relatively fast time. An example would be, we had a project where we had our traditional surveyor process go out and survey a site for us, right? And then what we said, well, let's figure out if we could do the same thing, something similar to what they're doing, but do it faster and get more data. And oh my goodness, we were able to prove the point. Well, we were finished processing, sharing the data with the surveyor. They were still out there surveying. And we had more information per square inch than what they were able to do with their grid pattern. So it truly blew their mind. And we collaborated on that job site. Then we had another third-party contractor come on board as well. So we were all kind of looking at the same sheet of music, right, with the same data. And we were able to get it done pretty fast. But then there's also other thermography, right? That's really important as well. As we button up these buildings, we could start to really look at and examine our buildings and see if there's any heat loss or water leaks. But yeah, it's pretty powerful how we're utilizing this technology.
There's an interesting thing you said there about we're all looking at the same sheet of music. That's kind of still an issue, right? In the AEC kind of sector. where architecture, engineer, and construction, like communicating, they somehow, despite being in the same industry, have ever so slightly different vocabularies or projections, specifically architect to job site, right? That's a huge gap. And this kind of stretch to get an accurate model helps that communication. I think back to my dad. He used to call the architects artists,
Yep.
kind of begrudgingly, because the practicality, sometimes it's like you're on site. It's like, okay, well, this is going to be, that window that looks beautiful in your design is going to be blocked, and so it actually got no kind of advantage even from a design perspective. So are we going to raise it? What are we going to do? How are we going to fix this, right? So you got to call them back into the conversation to kind of figure out the problem. So drones actually become a mediator for that, right? Because you're all looking at the same data.
Yeah, no, this is what's the beauty behind this. And it's funny you bring up that scenario. My background is in architecture. That's how I started my career. So I understand that our goal was design intent, right? My first real construction job was actually working on a Hensel Phelps project, right? We were the architects, Hensel Phelps was the builder. And then that's when we started that line of communication collaboration. It's still not figured out. There's still issues with it, not amongst us, but within the industry as a whole, right? But yeah, this tool is actually that differentiator that's allowing us to communicate, almost at, Bill Gates wrote a book a while back. I think it was Information at the Speed of Thought, right? And that's actually what it is. It's kind of, we have data that's in front of us that's almost real time. So this is pretty amazing. I'm glad where the industry is going. But again, we're still at the infancy of all this, and there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, definitely.
So we got a question, CJ. You want?
Yeah. I was gonna say, it looks like we have a question. So Richard, are you starting to incorporate LiDAR data, and which drone is the preferred platform if you are?
Well, the answer would be yes. We haven't done it yet, but this is a really good question. There are a lot of manufacturers out there that produce great airframes. So I think each business really needs to look at their internal ecosystem, how they plan on implementing a drone, different security issues that they need to contend with internally. So I'm not trying to beat around the bush. I just don't have an answer for that, because we are actually going down this avenue right now, trying to figure out what the best airframe is going to be to actually transport that sensor in the sky for us. But with that being said, we're looking at other sensors that aren't airborne sensors, but LiDAR within our job sites. So we're looking at the full gamut of things, because we're still at the infancy of this. And for us, it's about the sensor. Airframe is the tool that allows us to capture that data. So I don't have a good answer for you. I hate to say that, but we are truly investigating it. And hopefully by next year, we'll have a solution.
Mm-hmm.
So what level of accuracy are you trying to achieve? Like, do you feel like there's going to be a point rather soon, actually, where any more accuracy doesn't really matter? Because we're getting down to centimeters, millimeters, etc., probably in the next decade.
Yeah, and that's a really good question. I look at it as kind of our laser scanning. It's no different than laser scanning for us, right? We have some projects that it is so important to get down to the centimeter. I mean, it's like truly accurate types of information. Other projects we have, all we're doing is getting out there to understand what the volume, the space, and kind of the spatial relationship is for that job site. We're in the same mindset when it comes to our aerial airframes. We want to get close, because what's important for us, let's say, I'll use this as an example. If we have a stockpile that we, traditionally how that would work, we would rely on our excavators to kind of give us a rough quantity. And then from there, the people hauling out the stockpiles, they would charge us per truckload, per weight, or however that contract was set up. We would solely rely on them to give us and make sure that they were telling the truth, essentially, right? But now what we're able to do, we're able to get in there and we're able to compare their numbers, compare our numbers from the aerial data. And if there's a huge delta, it's like, wait a second, guys, there is something wrong here. So we're using this as a tool to really have them sharpen their pencils and figure out where they actually messed up, because it's happened a lot. Since the usage of aerial platforms, we've seen this a lot. We've been in meetings with some of these people hauling these stockpiles out. And it was some interesting conversations, to be honest with you. But now that they know that we are flying constantly, we're not having these issues anymore. So that's used for, to be quite honest with you. It's for them to sharpen their pencils and make sure that they're on the up and up.
Right.
So the efficiencies never end. It's just really amazing, right? Because there's cost control in there. The timing too, right? Because if you know you have enough on site rather than running out and having to call for more, you're saving time.
Yeah, and we are definitely saving time. One of the projects I spoke of is we're working with another contractor, and their scope of work is to build a major freeway here in Colorado, right? They're working on the major artery. And from our job site, they're using exported dirt from our job site to work on their project, right? So the key thing is with us is they're contracted to do so much, we're contracted to do so much. And we're meeting in the middle here because we're both using the same airframes. And it's just pretty amazing. At first, it took us a while to kind of get on the same page. But once they knew what we were doing, where our control points were, how we were gathering our information, and we knew how they were gathering their information, it worked out perfect. Yeah, so it's been pretty amazing utilizing it. But the key thing here is communication.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I want to jump into the second article. So Osaka Metro, so this is in Japan, is using drones to inspect hard to get to places in metro stations. So they showed a picture here. The drone's about the size of the palm of one's hand. And after the subway stations close down, this drone flies around and performs routine inspections at all the stations. It said it can get to an entire station in about a 2-hour time span. And it said that before this, they would have actually sent out some technicians. They would have inspected the inside of the ceiling with the platform with scaffolding, crawled into the space, and now they can just send a drone in there. And they said that now the next thing they're actually going to be looking at doing is sending these drones down different tunnels. And just being in New York City, Mike and I both, subway is always breaking down, and it always seems like it's under repair, and there's always work to be done. And so just like the thought of this thing going down some of these subway tunnels, doing these inspections, and hopefully just keeping the trains up and running is really cool. What are some of your guys' thoughts? And then Richard, as far as like doing maybe some sort of indoor inspections like this, is that ever something that's come up in your work? Is that ever something that you guys are looking into, or is that something that would be beneficial for some of the work that you guys do at Hensel Phelps?
No, you know what? This is amazing. I'm glad you brought up this article, because this is truly where this technology is going, right? It's not only in kind of our standard airspace. This is also internal with some of these facilities we're working on in closed confined areas. So the answer to your question, yes, we have definitely dabbled in this, and we are definitely utilizing a tool such as this. And it's actually for one of our major healthcare providers, where we're able to actually fly the interior of their building at night. And what the goal behind this is actually going through, and it's using LiDAR, right? It's all new technology. And what we're able to do is actually fly through the building, and it's using SLAM technology essentially. So it knows where the confined spaces are. It can maneuver around. And it captures data. The reason why we're doing this is production tracking, right? So if our crews go in there during the day, they install pipes, fire sprinkler systems, drywall, it's actually capturing that data. Then with their software, we're able to take that, compare it with their schedule to figure out if we're on track or not. To be honest with you, who's benefiting from it and who's paying for this is the owner, not us. Because think about it, right? So the tool is not only affecting us, drone technology, it's not affecting us. but it's also affecting the owner. So the owner is actually using it as a leveraging tool to say, hey, Hensel Phelps, your schedule says this, production is here, right? So it's not just about construction anymore. The owners are actually getting wind of this technology and utilizing it. And with that, though, with any new technology, it has its issues, right? So it's not, at least the system we're using, it's not refined yet. There's a lot of kind of improvements that it could, improve on. So we're kind of going down that avenue. But again, we're also looking at robotics. We're looking at some of the Boston Dynamic spot robots where it could do the exact same thing through a LiDAR on there and have it just walk around. So that's one thing there. But there's a lot of things to take into consideration because this equipment is so new, it's bound not to do what you want it to do and probably run into something. And we've seen some of that as well. So those are some of the things we're experimenting with. But I'm thinking for large kind of tunnel inspections like that, that's just amazing where that's going. So I'm pretty excited to see more tech being developed for this.
Yeah, can we talk about kind of the failure rate? So just looking at the kind of spot example, right? So some of this technology, we're only seeing the PR campaign, and because they're private companies, it's and the communication, it's not like the level of use is where we have like Consumer Reports data, right? So, I mean, have you seen... just to still keep it positive, have you seen improvements since those early days as far as reliability with drones and you being able to kind of, watch your clock or time your clock to actual real behavior?
No, definitely. We've definitely seen that. I mean, like any new technology, you're either at the cutting edge or the bleeding edge, right? And some of our technologies, we've definitely been there at that bleeding edge. And we work with some of these companies. And anytime we experiment with new tech, we always make sure our environment is set up for if there is a failure, right? So we really monitor that properly. And, who's to say that, some type of robot we had on a job site didn't fall down a shaft because it wasn't picking up the LiDAR properly? Who knows, right?
Never happens.
It's one of those things where, we monitor that closely. But that's just kind of the price of entry sometimes because some of this technology is so bleeding edge, right? It's so disruptive that when it's tested in a controlled environment, things always work perfectly. But once it's out in the real world, you have different challenges, different obstacles, and it takes a while for the machine to learn. It's like any type of new technology. You need to teach the machine how to kind of adapt to its environment. We're not there yet. We'll get there, but yeah, you're right with the PR spin on a lot of this stuff. It's always good, but there is always bad with that. And I think people who are looking to get into this technology, be prepared for that, have a contingency in your safety plans to actually allot for that.
I think one thing let's just also not forget that a lot of this work is not completely harmless to the humans that are employed to do it. So yes, the drone may crash sometimes, but if we're able to at least just keep some additional humans out of harm's way and reduce some of the accidents that happen on site, I still think that that's probably a trade-off that most people are willing to take.
I agree with you 100%. And that's the whole reason why we're utilizing this technology is always being safety number one for us, right? But if we could reduce the risk of having one of our employees performing a task where we could have a unit go out there and give us the information we need, we're going to go for that, So I'm with you 100%. Safety is number one.
Right. Looks like we have another question. So to Richard and Mike, is BVLOS operation required for any of your larger projects? And if yes, what are your key requirements to implement this in accordance with FAA regulations?
So to be honest with you, we haven't had any BVLOS projects implemented. A lot of our projects are close quarters, small urban infill projects We've had some projects where we considered it. Example would be, and it's in Guam. We were looking to fly a large corridor over there, but we had a lot we're still working on it, but we have a lot to contend with there because it's darn near one big military base to begin with. So we got to contend with that. And also just seeing if we could get approval. So in our application, I could sit here and just say, yeah, we use it all the time, but we don't. We don't use it because our projects aren't just set up that way. They're pretty much small infill. If anything, our biggest project, I could just think of is probably, 200 acres plus, right? So it's not, there's no need for it.
You can get a visual observer. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, guys, let's quick touch on this last article, and then we'll jump into some of the questions for you, Richard. This is more just kind of a fun piece of industry news. Well, actually, I guess there's another article yesterday that came out too regarding Amazon. But first, Sony preparing to enter the drone space with Air Peak. So there's not a ton of information on the announcement, but at a high level, what do we think about another big, reputable name with a lot of capital joining the industry? And Mike, I'd love for your thoughts on this one first.
I was barely paying attention. It's budget season and emergencies abound. So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, just Sony entering the drone space.
I'm excited.
What do you think? What types of aircraft do you think we can see from them? Is it going to be consumer? Do you think they'll actually do something in the commercial space and create some aircraft that is up there with the ones that we're all familiar with? Well,
I know they tacked on the word AI in the press release. I'm curious as to kind of the cart before the horse strategy. Although I've seen that with kind of Japanese companies before. They really like to do the teaser, right? And get people warmed up and excited. And I think, though, what's interesting there is just, with the current environment against kind of Chinese drones, Chinese manufactured drones, if you look at South Korea and Japan as places who are able to produce technology and have good reputations for some, like I'm monitoring on a Samsung TV right now, and then I got the Sony in the other room. So between that, we got South Korea and Japan in the house already. If they are able to produce something that's equal in kind of product quality to what the Sony brand is known for, they know how to produce hardware. So it might be an interesting kind of final foray into the space, and then also it gives us a kind of another option where you're less concerned about the State Department saying you can't fly your drone for whatever reason or other.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just exciting to see another big player in the space. Like you said, Mike, somebody that is known for hardware. I wonder if this is at all, or if the decision was affected by the potential DJI ban, or what we're calling the DJI ban, but the foreign drone ban that the U.S. Is implementing. So I wonder if Sony sees an opportunity there. Just another piece of news yesterday: Amazon reportedly laying off dozens of employees on their Prime Air project. Don't totally know what to make of it, but maybe it's just a little bit of industry shaking out, but definitely some news coming from some of these big companies. So interesting to see. So Richard, I guess earlier this week we were chatting briefly, and I just touched on it here, but potential foreign drone ban. You mentioned that your team is considering maybe choosing some different aircraft to fly with due to some of the projects you work on. What, if anything, can you tell us about that? And, what has that kind of decision process been like for you guys? And has it really thrown a wrench in a lot of the operations that you guys have been doing? And, have you had to ground any aircraft?
This is a good question, because this is actually near and dear to my heart right now. We talked about our early adoption of utilizing drones, and we've used the popular drone out there that everyone's using, And we started with that one. And I'm not gonna lie, I like the airframe. It's a great airframe. It works. It's tried and true. It has a great track record. So we use that drone. And this has never affected us because, as you know, as you and Mike both know, this has been controversy for a long time with Chinese drones. And now it's actually hit near and dear to my heart. It's affecting our company. And when I say that because of the projects that we work on and certification that we're looking for. Not to say that there are people out there that use these drones and they work well for them. That's great. But this is what's happening with us in our ecosystem. Other companies may look at things differently and still continue to use drones manufactured overseas. But for us, it's really going to impact how we move forward utilizing these drones. So we're looking at other options, looking at other tools that we could use to actually give us the data that we're used to getting. But yeah, no, it's definitely affecting us. We haven't grounded anything yet, but it's one of those things where if our corporate attorneys and our IT department is satisfied with the data, we will continue to, or information we get, we'll continue to utilize the drones, but that still doesn't help us for our military or high secured type of projects where the owner is telling us we can't use it. So if the owner is telling us we can't use it, we can't use it, right? We may want to use it all day long, but we're at the mercy of the owners, and they're following protocols that they need to follow. So we're definitely looking. Our goal is to find a solution that checks all the boxes. From the documentation that the government's looking for, also documentation from a safety aspect. And that's what concerns me the most as well, to be honest with you, is a safety aspect, because some of these new companies on the blue list, I don't see a lot of, there's not a track record. At least I'm not seeing it other than them doing their testing. So it's going to be an interesting journey. It could almost be like starting all over again. So we'll have to see where it goes.
Well, that's my fear.
Right, we hope not.
Yeah, you get this massive kind of reset because, like you said, it's not. And a lot of those companies are great too, right? Because they're innovative and they're pushing new technology, but there's certain kind of efficiencies that come at scale. And Brendan Groves from Skydio last week made a point that this industry actually isn't healthy because of the dominance of DJI. And it's actually a really good point to be made in the sense that if nobody else is able to operate at that scale, then we're looking at reliability kind of issues if there becomes this push to need a replacement, right? And I think I'd rather see a scenario where companies can find niches to actually carve out that DJI has no interest in, right? Because they'll be the Toyota of drones. They won't get into the trucks. They won't get into the ATVs. They won't get into the motorbikes of drones, whatever those comparable kind of formats are. But, it's got to start somewhere. So, clearly years ago you were up for testing a drone from Sharper Image. With your knowledge, you might be less kind of inclined to do that now. But I'm sure if you have to make this decision, you're going to set up the safety and start from scratch. And, technology moves fast. So even if it's a little bit of a rough period, we'll get past it.
Nope, you're absolutely correct. And it's interesting. That was a great analogy, kind of comparing it with the automotive analogy. And that's exactly, we need that type of competition within the market, right? And it would be, some people like, BMWs, others like Mercedes, right? So it depends on what works best for your company, your workflow. But for us, we're going to use the DJI drone until we can't use it anymore, unless it comes down from corporate that we can't use it anymore. We're not going to use it. It's just plain and simple. But that's for our work environment. That's what we're doing to kind of meet our standards internally. Not to say there will be other companies that actually use the DJI drone, not a problem at all. But it's just the way we're working and operating right now.
Yeah, everybody's really got to make their decision based on what they can control, right? So the largest concern is on the software kind of IT side. If you have a robust IT department that can check the security, make sure, I mean, maybe possibly install a completely different app for controlling the drone fleet management, or cleaning the data on input into the servers, whatever way that they're able to do it. Or if you're confident that it's just image data and you're more concerned about securing your servers, period, then maybe the drone isn't the concern for you. Or on the opposite end, maybe you're totally concerned and you're doing government work, or you're working for a government project, and then you say, okay, well, I'm just gonna use a Parrot, or I'm gonna use a Skydio for this situation, because I can rest my head knowing that from top to bottom we're secure for this instance. And you got to make those decisions yourself.
Yes. Richard, would Hensel Phelps ever consider, or other similar organizations consider, having two different types of aircraft in their fleet that they would use for different jobs or different deployments?
Yeah, how hard does that become?
Yeah, and then back to the data, right? And we're all reading the same sheet of music. Well, if you're on two different platforms, does that complicate that?
Yeah, no, it definitely complicates things, because the way we started our program, we wanted one airframe consistency across the board through all of our districts, all of our pilots. But with that being said, what we've learned through our journey here is a drone is a tool, and there's different tools for different applications. Just as when we build a building, we don't use a hammer to build the entire building. So with our drones, we got to look at it that way as well. Even though some may say, well, you're spending too much money on this drone, you need to look at it in a totally different light here, because we may have, if we could work this out where we have some projects that aren't in a secured environment and we're just looking to document, get photographs, do some aerial photos, we will definitely do that. We would continue to use the DJI drone. But then for our high secure projects where we can't upload any data anywhere, we will we'll use a new airframe. So I think we have room here to actually use multiple drones. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, we would just have to internally, right? We would have to figure out that workflow process. We would have to make sure that those teams understand that this drone is used for this purpose only, and we can't use it for the project next door if if it's a secure project. So I definitely see there's room and opportunity for that. We just need to kind of work that out internally, and we need to cross that bridge when we get there, because this is, to be honest with you, all this is new for us right now. Mm-hmm. We're going through this currently. So we're still kind of working out the details. And some of you that have heard me speak before, you've heard me talk on and on about safety and how we learn from something. This is just another learning opportunity, right? During this whole course that we're going through, this journey, this is new. We're learning from it, and we're going to kind of adapt and kind of move on and just kind of continue to get data for the job sites for the folks that need it the most.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Totally agree. We're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, we're going to do final questions with Richard. I don't want to take you away from the podcast for too long, but I got to catch you up to speed on what InterDrone's been doing over the last couple months. We've created this awesome new resource called Launchpad, which includes all of our previously recorded session content, every webinar we've had with a thought leader, and even past episodes of this podcast. On top of that, it includes an index of every person who's ever spoken at InterDrone and every company that's relevant to the drone space. The best part is all of that information interlinks so you can find the tools and resources you need to advance your drone program. Memberships start for free on Launchpad. All you have to do is go to launchpad.aero and sign up today. Okay, we're back.
I think we saw Richard pictured there in the Launchpad promo
2 weeks clip. In a row, it's funny.
Yeah, never gets old.
It's the accident that keeps on giving here.
Richard, are there any exciting use cases on your horizon for drone deployments on construction sites? Something that maybe you haven't done yet, but in the next year, 2 years, you're thinking, oh, okay, this is a use case that we're not there yet, but this will be a game changer for us.
Yeah, no, the biggest thing for us is I mean, we're really pushing, thermography has been around for a long time, in relatively in our short drone span, right? But we're really going to push the envelope with that and really capture data for our job sites. Even before we start construction on facilities, we're planning on flying just to make sure that if we're working on an addition for a building, we're able to kind of document the site, document roofs, leaks in the buildings, so that when we do build something, there's never an issue that we may have damaged something. So we're utilizing that technology just as a documenting tool. We have our pilots, a few of our pilots kind of trained up in thermography, and they're ready to work across the country flying our projects. So pretty excited about that. Also, the big thing, what excites me the most right now is kind of the whole machine learning aspect. I know it's a buzzword, AI is a buzzword, but machine learning, utilizing this data. So we're really experimenting with that now and looking forward to see where we could take this, because that's what it's about. We capture so much data on any particular job site, and it's valuable. If we could utilize that data to help us perform better and really make us work efficiently, that's what excites me, right? So we're working with companies, also working internally to develop, tools and different types of applications so that we could have our internal staff utilize this data and just start mining it. So that's what excites me. That's what we're working towards, is really pushing the kind of the machine learning aspect of just taking data and just seeing what we could get out of it. So that's where we're at.
That's exciting because I remember you were talking about machine learning maybe 2 years ago, and you were kind of waffling on it. And I remember I told you got to train the data set, or otherwise it's not going to produce for you. But once you get it there, then it's, you could bet on those results being more consistent than what a human would be. So it looks like so you pushed forward and you started getting those results.
It is, and it's pretty amazing. And it's funny you bring that conversation up. I remember that we were standing in the corridor at one of the events, and I remember then that actually stuck with me. And when I brought that up to you back then, I had no clue what I wanted, but what really resonated with me was teach the machine. When you told me that, I was like, huh. And I've pretty much taken that through this whole kind of journey of actually starting to develop this content. So with this one, what we're doing is we have a team, internal team that's really pushing the envelope, where we're working with other, AI scientists, so to speak, and just having them look at our data sets and figuring out how we could position the drones, position the sensors, capture certain data. And what we're also doing is we have our superintendents, safety managers go through and analyze the footage themselves and having them pick out what they see. Then we're taking that information to the AI specialist and have them kind of duplicate what we're looking for. So that's what we're doing. It's going to be a slow process. But once we could at least get these algorithms to pick up certain things, it's going to be pretty powerful. And there are companies now where we're working with where we have crane cams or cams sensors positioned within the job site. And it's already picking up information for us for material delivery or, personnel, not doing safe functions. So we already have that piece kind of dialed in, working with some of our third-party vendors. But now we're taking it kind of full spectrum, utilizing that drone data. So yeah, we're pushing it, and definitely look forward, for, just future outcomes of this, because the technology is only going to get better.
Yeah, that crane data paints a different kind of picture, right? Because it's more consistent, so it becomes kind of the lifespan of the site with another type of superintendent in the sky, right? Whereas the drone data, what would you say the difference why would you fly the drone rather than just keeping the crane solid? Like, is it better mapping, better modeling? The crane is better for stockpile membership. I can't think of the word right now. Measurement. There you go. Yeah, what's kind of the dividing line for when you use one or the other?
Yep. So the dividing line is definitely our cranes are in fixed positions, right? So we can only get so much information within the site. So let's say if we're working on one of our sites that's 100 acres and our building only takes a small footprint of that, right? We're only capturing what's within the envelope of those cranes. Everything outside of those cranes, we're not capturing that data. So that's where we would utilize that drone technology. But with a lot of our infills, we have a crane, right? That crane, as it rotates and does its thing, there's a sensor on there. But here's the beauty behind it, right? If this is a downtown environment type of project, all you got to do is go talk to your neighbors and say, hey, let me mount a camera up on your roof, look into your site. You have another sensor. So there's a ton of opportunities. And I think that's what we're realizing. It's all about the data, all about the sensor. And however we get it, we're going to benefit from it. If it's from a fixed sensor or it's an aerial sensor, we're still going to get it. So that's what the benefit is of utilizing a drone on a job site. If it's a large job site and we need to capture that data outside of those crane radiuses.
Right. You mentioned the magic is kind of in the sensor, right? Is capturing that data, and that's where you can, however you get it up in the sky. Is one thing, but once it's up there, you're able to capture that data and really do something meaningful with it. Richard, I know we're kind of coming up on an hour here, but what advice might you have for other construction professionals looking to either start a drone program, whether that's getting support from their superiors or getting some data or getting a case study that they can show and show how this technology is going to work and save money and save time, potentially save lives. What from your experience can you recommend for other construction professionals?
So what I would recommend highly is do your homework. Figure out how you're going to use the drone. There's different drones for different applications. Always keep that in mind. Not one drone is going to do everything you want it to do. Even though you would like it to do that, I was under that impression early on where I wanted one drone to do everything. You're going to find as you go through your journey of setting up a drone program that that's not the case. So evaluate how you want to start with the plan. Make sure there's value there. That's a key thing within the construction industry. Everything we do has to provide value, because if you really think about it, we don't fly drones for a living, right? In your profession, right? You're in it to build buildings, build bridges, and do certain things like that, right? This is just a tool to help you along to capture the information. It has to provide value. Make sure you have a safety plan involved, because that's really important. Because what we're realizing, especially this year, I don't know if it's this year going into next year, our insurance underwriters now, they're really keen to us using drones on job sites, and they're asking a lot more questions than they have ever asked in our whole drone program. And the reason why is because there's more data out there about using drones on job sites. So look into whatever underwriter you have for your insurance, because they will have a lot to say about it. And if they will not cover you as a company, you're going to have to look elsewhere for insurance. So something to think about. That's a whole nother thing we're working on right now. We're seeing some questions being asked from our underwriters that we've never seen before. Have a plan, safety number one, pick your airframe that works best for you, and fly safe.
All right. Awesome. No, I think that's great, great advice. Great kind of closing segment for today's episode. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Definitely join us and Richard at InterDrone Online. He's speaking on a couple sessions. Those will be live streamed and on demand for anybody that attends in December. So December 15th or 17th. Thank you everybody for tuning in live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. If you are watching this on YouTube, definitely ring the bell, hit subscribe, sign up for alerts. We do this podcast weekly, and we're thrilled to be bringing it to you live pretty regularly now. So it is Friday. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see everybody next week on the next episode. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you very much.